Good morning. My name is Ben Felder. I'm a reporter with the Oklahoman, the daily newspaper here in Oklahoma City. I'm on the investigative team. I think we're a 5 or 6 person team, and we all have kind of different areas that we cover. My main focus is on education, politics, social issues, and just kind of the blending of some of those issues. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. And there was a time early in my life where I was working on my master's in education, and I was also working for a newspaper. And I knew that I had this interest and love and curiosity for education. Had been really influential in my life and really shaped my own worldview. But I came to that point where I had to decide. Either I was going to go into teaching or I was going to go full-time, full-fledged into journalism. And I chose journalism mainly because I don't think I lacked the courage to be a teacher. The saying is sometimes those who can't teach, those who can't actually, I think, write about it. So one of the things I love about my job is the opportunity to go into schools, spend time with teachers, families, parents, students, and getting a chance to learn more about what drives them and their passion and help trying to tell that story to others in a way that hopefully leads us to solutions for some of our biggest problems. But one of the things I do as a journalist, obviously, is I ask questions. It's kind of one of the more important aspects of the job. And so I believe that words are important. I believe that questions are important. How we ask questions are important. That's going to shape an interview. When I'm talking to somebody, the words that I use in a question, the style of my question is going to shape the kind of response that I get. And so I often think when we're talking about schools and the problems and challenges that schools face, how we ask the questions are some of the most important things that we do in trying to find solutions. And some of the things that I say to people when I'm talking about this topic is, what questions are we asking about our schools? Oftentimes, you hear questions like, what is wrong with our school? Why is this a bad school? How do we fix this school? What makes a school good versus one school bad? And I think there's some relevancy to some of those questions, but I also think those questions are completely simplistic, and they really kind of miss the larger picture. And instead of asking those questions, I sometimes think that the most important question we can ask ourselves, especially here in Oklahoma City, is what prevents a child who is living in our community from achieving academic success and success in life? It's a completely different question, and the answer you get is completely different. When we ask what is wrong with our schools, the answers are often tied to issues, like Chris was saying, of funding, of curriculum, of standards, of teacher training, of the school culture, all things that are really important and make a huge difference in the lives of our students and our teachers in our classrooms. But when you ask the question, what is preventing a child in our community from finding success academically and success in life? More times than not, the answers that you get have nothing to do with the classroom. They have nothing to do with schools. The answers you get are, what kind of community situation is this child coming from? Is he dealing with generational poverty, hunger? Is there trauma in his or her life? Is there a literacy issue? Is there a language challenge with speaking the language? What kind of mentors, what kind of examples do they have in their lives? It's often relating to the baggage that child is bringing in that has just as much of an impact, if not greater impact, on that student's ability to learn and to do well in life. I want to read a quote from a book by the author is Peter Sachs, and his book is called Tearing Down the Gates, and talks about kind of the divide that exists between affluent students and those who are living in poverty when it comes to educational achievement. And this statement is really hyperbolic, and I don't mean to divert attention away from schools, because that's what I think we're going to largely talk about. But he says, quote, schools themselves contribute insignificantly to student achievement relative to what children bring with them to school from the first day of kindergarten, derived largely from the social class background of their parents and grandparents and from other aspects of their life beyond school. The unavoidable policy implications are that good schools can go only so far in raising the achievement levels of disadvantaged children, and that attacking the problem with policies that improve the social and economic conditions of individuals and families will be more effective than creating policies aimed at just schools. I call that statement kind of hyperbolic because obviously it says, it's kind of pointing the picture that what happens outside the school is what matters. you know, you can have the best school and the best teachers and it's not going to make a difference. That's not true. I mean, we know that great teachers, that great classrooms, that great schools, that great administrators make a huge difference and are completely necessary. But we also know that in and of itself, there are still major challenges that schools are asked to address, but not given the ability to handle. You know, for me, writing about education in Oklahoma City is as much about writing about issues of poverty and social justice and neighborhood development and safety as it is talking about curriculum or teachers or standards in the classroom. And I think when you ask the question, you know, how are our students in Oklahoma City? What are some of the major challenges facing our schools? To me, is that there exists, and Chris kind of touched on this, a major disconnect between the city and its schools. A major disconnect in the city and its students. And I love that Chris is talking about students in the context of our students, because that's where that disconnect exists. This ability that these are some other students, that these are some other kids, that these are another community, that I don't know who these kids are, I don't know who these families are, I don't know the challenges they face, and they are not relevant to my life. And I'm not even talking about taking ownership of our students because it's going to matter in the future. I mean, sometimes you'll hear that we need to get involved in our child's life because these are the future. These are the future politicians, these are the future doctors, the future teachers, the future policemen. I mean, and this is true. I mean, this is the future generation. But there's more at stake beyond just creating the future of our society. There's more at stake today. And the disconnect between schools and the community, I believe, is one of the major challenges that we face in really seeing meaningful change, meaningful improvement, and not just the classroom, but in the lives of our students and our families. And when I look at the biggest challenge that we face, it's easy to come up with things like generational poverty, segregation, incarceration, and it's easy to find the connection. I mean, it's no coincidence that Oklahoma has one of the highest incarceration rates in the nation, also has one of the highest suspension rates in the nation. It's no coincidence that we have one of the highest student poverty rates and a growing adult poverty rate, one of the highest in the nation. But I think there also exist opportunities, particularly here in Oklahoma City, with such a diverse student population. I think sometimes we often look, one of the things that I find the most successful strategies to improving schools is often when schools or teachers or administrators or communities take a look at what are some of the weaknesses that exist in our child's lives or the challenges, and how do we turn them into strengths. For example, looking at issues like language barriers that are often used as an example of why students aren't performing at the level that they need to be. How can we turn that into a strength? How can we look at the fact that Oklahoma City has such a large and diverse culture of students, a large Spanish-speaking culture? How can that be flipped around to where it no longer becomes a weakness and a challenge, but is almost an attractor, where parents who have children that don't speak English are attracted to putting their students in classes that may be bilingual? And I guess I'll end with this. One of the questions was asked to talk about is where do I see good work taking place? And it is easy as a reporter to sometimes focus on the negative. I mean, if you want me to write about the problems in schools, I mean, I could turn out an article every day, and that's an easy task. It becomes a little bit more challenging to find what are the solutions, what are people doing well, where's the good work taking place. And for me, it's when that disconnect starts to be closed. When you look at schools and communities where heavy lifting is not just taking place inside the school building, but it's also taking place in the community. When neighborhood leaders, when city leaders, when community leaders understand their role to play in transforming a school, to where it's not just about more funding in the classroom, better books, and better technology. It's about something as simple as better sidewalks to a school, or better safety in a community, or access to affordable housing, jobs, public transportation. All these social issues that we sometimes think of disconnect and separated from schools. I think for us to be successful with our children and with our schools, it's going to take closing that disconnect. It's going to be stepping forward and taking ownership of our students, seeing these as our kids, and understanding the important role that our community development plays in growing and developing our schools. So thank you.